Welcome to the Performance Enhancing Podcast. It's like steroids for your brain. A podcast for people looking to live life at their peak potential. Chock full of real-world tools and knowledge that you can apply in your life today. By providing you with a lens into the lives, beliefs, practices, and actions of those who are already living extraordinary lives, the Performance Enhancing Podcast will help you shift your mindset or create that change in your daily rituals and habits so you can explode with success in the areas of life that are most important to you. So get ready for another dose of Performance Enhancing Podcast with SatoriPrime. Here's your host, Elon Ferdman.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another Pep Talk with your host, Elon Ferdman. So today, we're going to delve into part 2 of my interview with Mindie Kniss. So I know I left you on a cliffhanger. I already had a few people message me and say, why do you keep doing that to me? But I thought it was really good to leave it there and makes it for an interesting to come back, right? So in this one, we're going to finish that, the ugly truth story, if you will. And then we're going to go into what I think Mindie and I suffer from, and probably many of you listening suffer from, is the lone wolf entrepreneur mentality. And I think it comes from people, as you'll find out in this interview, that are very smart and also just their life has proven to work by them being able to do everything on their own. And you'll hear me share my story and her story about how the universe just kind of pushes you in a corner to a position where you no longer can do that to kind of get to the next level. So I thought that was a really great conversation. And then we'll really delve into hard path, what the experience is like, what the results you can expect, who this is for and not for, and things like that. So I hope you enjoy my part 2 of this interview with Mindie. Have an amazing day.
And here's the thing, is it can get really scary. And that story sounds very sexy, like, oh, cool, I declared it. And then a year later and everything happened. Like, that was awesome.
But that's not how it goes.
That's not the end of the story, though. That's the problem, is like that part is great. And then, Elon, you know my story. It got really bad from that point on. So I had this severance. I had a fair bit of savings. And I said, hey, I'm going to start fresh. I'm going to move to the opposite side of the country. So in 2008, I moved to Portland, Oregon. And I thought, I'm going to start my business here. Everything's going to be amazing. I'm also going to go to grad school, by the way, and something else, like all this other stuff, because I like the buffet option of life, as I mentioned. And so from that point, it occurred to me very quickly that I didn't know what the hell I was doing in terms of marketing and sales. And while I felt like I was a really powerful coach, I didn't know how, or I just didn't really have the guts to present that, to share that message. So I thought, if I can get in front of someone, I have no problem. Like, I can coach my face off and they can have amazing results, but nobody knew that.
Yeah.
So, and I also had a story about marketing. I was like, it's slick and salesy and it's not my thing and I don't need that. So I was very naive. And from that point forward, the next 2 years resulted in my home in Michigan being foreclosed, being evicted from my apartment in Portland, living out of my office with all my, anything that I hadn't yet sold was in my office with me, draining my 401k, charging everything on credit cards up to about $90,000 in credit debt. And at the end of all that, filing bankruptcy. So it just hit rock bottom and sucked a lot. And thankfully, that's not the end of the story either. The end of this, well, at least to the, to now, is that I thought, hey, you know what? If I learn a little bit about marketing, I bet that would serve me well.
It took bankruptcy to get to that point.
I told you, I am head driven. That ego, I have a very strong ego. And it's very funny because I've been blessed enough, people have said, oh, Mindie is one of the top teachers of the heart, like in the modern age. And I'm like, yeah, there's a reason for that, because I need this shit. That's great for the notoriety or whatever, but I'm like, okay, that's why, because I'm right there with it. I'm not some namaste I need it. And I know so many people, we're a head driven society.
Yeah.
So it's very universal.
Yeah. So in that moment, because I feel like we need to experience life in a very particular way to make us great at what it is that we end up teaching, right? So like you go through this crazy experience, and I think you didn't share here in the story, but like just tell people so they really get the world of it. Like you started getting clients and you were in an office, but like the whole moving up and down, like
that part was the worst of it. I had this very small office, and as I said, I had everything that I owned either in my car or in my office. But I did have a couple clients, which was amazing that I could even attract anyone in that scarcity land that I was living in, but somehow it worked out. So I had a few clients that would come to my office to meet with me live. So what I had to do every day that I had a client, so probably a couple times a week, was gather all that stuff, everything, bring it down to the basement of that building, set up my office as if everything's like cool and normal and hey, I'm your coach. Everything, of course, is perfect. Please. And then bring it back up after the clients were done. And actually after everybody else had left the building, because I was freaked out that somebody would know. There were two people, my like very good friends that were also in that building. They worked in that building and they knew what my situation was, but no one else did. So there were a lot of people coming in and out. And I didn't want it to get back to the landlord because I thought he would probably kick me out. I didn't want him to go down to the basement and say, whose stuff is all this and just get rid of it. So it sucked. Like every day, all this moving up and down hassle, like literally pulling out my futon. I had this little futon where people could sit and do meditation, but I pulled that out to go to sleep, pushed it back in every day to get ready for like my business day. So yeah. And that on top of that, my, everything I think now, my normal life is so different because I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I didn't even have any money to eat. So my food consisted of, if I could scrounge together like $1 or maybe a couple bucks to go to the Jack in the Box that was right across the street from that office and get something on their 99-cent value meal. Like that was what I was living on. And it's nuts. It was crazy.
It's nuts. This is, so during this process, right? Like every entrepreneur I've ever met has some sort of similar story. Like, we call it our war stories, but a moment where shit is so bad that if you ask anyone from the outside world, they're like, what are you doing? You're an insane person. Like
I was.
Right? So in the moment, what had you just stay in it and know that there's gonna be something on the other side of this? Like that seems pretty bleak and you're smart, you had a great Fortune 100 job. Like it wouldn't have been a problem to go back into that world. What keeps you going in that moment?
Yeah. What's funny is this wouldn't even be something that I would recommend to people, but in my case, it did serve me well. And I've been asked this before, but this is something different. I think honestly, it was because my ego was so strong. I was like, I have to figure this out. And there's no reason that I know people that are running businesses that are really, quite honestly, not that smart. So I'm like, if they can figure it out and make it happen and have some success, there is absolutely no reason that I can't, except for me. Like I got it that I was that limiting factor. I was my greatest challenge. But it was that strong ego that also said, I can't give up. Now, granted, I wanted to many times. I was like, this sucks. Like, I don't even know what to do. I'm so frustrated. I have no money. And I knew enough because I've studied metaphysics and all these different things. I knew that if I was coming from scarcity, that's not a very attractive proposition to a potential client. Like that, even if I'm not saying it, that energy is there. So I knew all that stuff. And yet I was still in it and thinking, how in the hell do I get out of this? But I had enough faith and trust in myself and really just pure tenacity to say, I just have to keep going. And then as I started getting to know different entrepreneurs and different marketers and different people, that just bolstered all of that, because they were so supportive and like, Mindie, you have to do this, not because like your ego stupid story about you have to do it, but you have to do it because there are people out there waiting for you to do it. You know, there are people that need your help and that need to be able to have that more direct line to what their soul is saying to them, because they're not getting the message. And if you can help them do that, like, you have to do that. So that help, you know, having people, I was under the impression I had to do it on my own. I'm like a super lone wolf type of person. And that wasn't true either. Like, all my perceptions had to go out the window, and it's gotten a lot better since.
Yeah, you cannot do that in business. I mean, that's the biggest mistake. And I think entrepreneurs in general, people that choose to go down this route, we tend to be very smart and we grasp things very quickly. And so doing it on our own just makes sense.
Right. Like, I've always done everything on my own.
Exactly.
So of course.
Exactly. Yeah. Which is, you know, it's a pretty typical personality type of entrepreneurs.
Exactly.
So then you're talking about lone wolf, and like, I think everyone has kind of that story where at some point they're like, I just can't do this shit on my own. And so they either quit or they figure that out and go. But what was the thing that broke it open for you?
You know, what really broke it open was surrender. Surrendering to like, oh, wow, okay, I don't have to do this alone. And surrendering to, oh, if I get someone's help in this, or if I ask for help, that doesn't make me wrong and bad and a huge failure. Like that, I don't know if you're familiar with the fixed versus growth mindset. Yep. It's freaking brilliant. And
Carol Dweck.
Yeah, Carol, like, read that book, everybody.
Yes, everyone amazing. Read that book.
It was life-changing to me because I had a very fixed mindset. And that sucks. It's really, really hard to live in that context. And so surrendering to, oh, there are other ways to do this, and there are people that would be not only willing but happy to help me. And yeah, so that it was surrender. And it didn't just happen like that.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, my ego is strong. So it was like chipping away piece by piece over quite a long time. You know, it's been this whole process and journey, and I'm still figuring it all out. I still have the tendency to think, first and foremost, when I wake up in the morning, I am doing this on my own, and that's it. So it's the practice of saying, is that true? You know, the Byron Katie question, is that true? Yep. Well, no, it's not true at all. And I know that, but until I get it, and then I get it. So it's a continuous process.
Yeah, it's just so funny. We really are, you've said it before, but we learn this stuff to deal with ourselves. and universe just puts us in situations over and over to test like that next level of that training.
And to prove us wrong.
Yes.
You know, Elon, I'm sure your people have heard you talk about your story with the mortgage.
Yes.
And with your wife and that whole thing. When I was hearing you share that again, just last week or whenever we were together, I said to Sean afterwards, I go, you know, that you and I were both in that same position because we thought that we could do it independently. We thought that we should do it ourselves. And yet the universe conspired to not just make us like calmly realize like, oh, I could get help, but to force the fucking issue. Like you didn't have a choice in that time. You're like, okay, we got to have a conversation.
Yep.
And when I was in Portland at the bottom of bottom, like rock bottom, I didn't have a choice of people coming into my life and saying, look, I'd like to help. Cause I'm like, okay, like I had no choice. And so you and I, it wasn't even our decision. It was the universe being like, yo, you crazy people, pay attention.
Because we are both very, very strong-willed and both very, very, like we've done it all ourselves all the time. We didn't have any other gear. There wasn't this like other gear where we had to even find it before.
Right.
Until it was, like we just realized there's no other way. Like we have to go in a different direction because every tool I know wasn't getting me out of that thing.
Exactly. Totally.
Brilliant.
Force the hand.
So let's talk a little bit more about the audience and who this is for and what you do, because you're very experience driven, like experiential learning, which I love.
Totally.
Take people through the process of what you have going on.
So what I have going on right now, which is super fun, I would say of all the things that I've put together in my business, this one is absolutely my favorite. And the reason is because I basically set it up for me. What do I want to do and what sounds cool to me? So I love hiking. I love the outdoors. I love wilderness. I love Sedona, Arizona. It's one of my favorite cities on the planet. And I've been a lot of places and that one is top. And I love meditation. I love looking at the great wide open sky, all this stuff. So I created, and this was back in Kenya that I created it. So I hadn't even started coaching when I had this vision of, I'd like to bring groups to Sedona and have them experientially learn how to not be so stuck in that headspace, but to drop into the heart and just learn how to live life from that perspective. So the people that are attracted to that and to me and my work are often entrepreneurs. And if they're not, they have that, maybe they're a entrepreneur, they definitely have that bent or that interest at least. People also that are just not fulfilled, they're not having that connection of like, I'm awesome at this. I'm passionate about this. And there's this need in the world that I am helping to fill, helping to feed and serve. And I help them figure out what that is. So people that are just kind of ambling through life, I bring them on this weekend retreat in Sedona. It's called Heart Path. And like I said, it's my absolute favorite thing because I will have people that are atheists or Christians or Jews or nothing, whatever. And they come in and I tell them very clearly, first and foremost, I'm like, you know what? I don't care what your belief system is. It doesn't matter to me at all. What I care about deeply is how you feel and what is your experience of this stuff. So anybody that is open enough to start at that perspective and just say, cool, I'll see what happens. It is amazing what happened. I'll give you a quick story just because it's cool. I want to talk about it. There's a woman who, she and her husband have come from, they live in Oregon, and they've come to Heart Path 3 times now over the last few years.
Wow.
And the first time when they showed up, they were hard. Like the guy was just basically like, I don't even know what I'm doing here. Like, I don't know why I signed up for this. This sounds a little woo-woo. Like, what are we doing here? So hard. And his wife was very like, you better deliver, Mindie, basically like pretty tough. Which I like because I'm pretty tough as well. So it was like a nice match. And she, the wife, is in a wheelchair because she has MS that has consistently gotten worse over the years. And that first time, so that would have been like 4 years ago, 3 years ago, I don't even know. They show up and we're doing this meditation. And we end it and I say, cool, what did you guys experience? How does it feel? Does anyone want to share? And the guy raises his hand. He's like, I didn't really feel anything. Cool. So that's the story I shared earlier. I'm like, were you relaxed? Great. Awesome. That's good for now. His wife, though, she's sitting right next to him. She goes, I had this really interesting thing happen. Always, like 100% of the time in my legs, I feel this tingling and like this discomfort. It's almost like they're a little bit jumpy. And that's from the MS with the nerve damage. And she said, what was crazy is that during that experience, it was maybe 5 minutes, I didn't have that. My legs were calm. I didn't have that sense of tingle or anything.
Wow.
And then her husband, who's Mr. like, I don't believe in any of this shit, is hearing her say this. And he gets teared up and he's like, oh my gosh, because he's never, since she developed MS, he's never known her to not have that. So fast forward to now, these two people, holy cow, they're like my star students because this guy came in all like tough, whatever. now he's like, I love you guys. This is amazing. Like, just like wide open heart. It's so hilarious. And same with his wife. I mean, there's so many great stories, like, and I could go on and on, which I won't, but it's an amazing time. People like, and I always feel so blessed to be able to do that, because my joke with them is I could literally bring people to Sedona, not say anything to them for a weekend, and have them leave transformed, because the power of the place is so extraordinary.
Yeah.
So it's like that, plus reconnecting to the wilderness, plus unplugging from your daily routine, plus reconnecting to your own self. Like, it's so fun.
That's amazing. When is it, by the way, the next one?
So the next one is May 12 through 15.
Okay, cool. And you're in the process of getting people filled in for that now.
Right now, baby.
Right now, baby. So this
right
is
now, baby. So if you're
where,
interested, talk to me right now.
where do people go to find out more about it? And
Heartpathretreats.com.
Heartpathretreats.com. All right, we'll put that in the show notes, guys, so you can have it there.
Awesome.
And what's for people who are kind of like, okay, this sounds great, but I'm really committed to like my whole thing with when even we had our event. Personal development is one of these things that doesn't have an ROI per se. And like there's brains, like the brain people who are not using their heart, the brain people are very focused on ROI. Like, what do I get out of this? I'm going to invest this. Like, what do I get out of 2.5 days? Which sometimes for mind, brain, body work is difficult. Like if I sign people up to our Facebook marketing workshop, I can be like, you're going to invest this amount of money, and at the end of the night, you walk away with this, this, and this.
Yeah.
With this stuff, it's different. So what would you say to someone that is kind of like in that headspace?
Yeah. And to be quite honest, there are some numbers that we can look at, because as I mentioned, this affects your health, your relationships, and potentially your wealth. So if you look at health, like those are quantifiable things that you can actually test. If your blood pressure drops on a consistent basis, that's a really good thing. And a lot of people that are in the headspace have really high blood pressure, because it's like, all the noise of our modern world. And that's just one example. There are multiple health related things that can come from this type of work. There's another one with relationship. One woman who came to HeartPath a few years ago, she was like, I'm really into this stuff, but my husband is not. Like, he's very head focused and is not interested in changing that. And here's what's cool about the heart work, and this is proven scientifically now, is that my coherence can affect your coherence. So she said, is this something that I can do? Like, if I learn coherence and get into that, can it affect him without him knowing? And I said, absolutely. So let me tell you, that can impact relationships. And when you're talking about marriages, one, on the emotional side, it's like you want to just have a good, awesome, healthy relationship. But on the financial side, if you're going to be fighting all the time about money, or if you're going to be ending in divorce, like that's a really costly thing.
Yeah.
And this work can help solve those problems too, those challenges. And then finally, on the wealth side, the thing that I always use with entrepreneurs, I'm like, okay, if I can help you tap into that intuitive guidance that is never wrong, don't you think that might help you with business negotiations, expanded creativity for your business, even connecting with the right partnerships that you need? Like, so yeah, it is intangible in that regard, but sometimes not. I have people that have started in businesses that have been really successful, and they would say it was based on learning to tap in and listen.
I would just tell people, if you're in any sort of conversation like that, don't ever even listen to people like us about what's possible. Look at your own life as experience. Like,
totally.
Go back in the past. I said this earlier on. I guarantee that every decision that has given you massive success, relationship with your dreams, anything like that you can kind of latch onto, has come from you following your heart and not your head. Because just like Mindie's story and my story, our heads, when we were at the lowest low of our lives, like if we would have listened to that, we wouldn't be here right now.
No, the head has nothing in a point like that.
Yeah. So that's, just check in for yourself and like imagine being able to have that as a tool in your tool belt that you can consistently go to and not just have a fluke like, oh, something called me, but actually learn to listen to that thing. It's just massive. I mean, the more, and I'm sure you do it too, it's like you keep getting better and better at it. It never, that growth never stops in that world.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So, all right. So we're kind of coming, like, I want to start wrapping this up with some like actionable things. I know we always tend to go in a bunch of different directions. So we have the link of where people can go. You just say it again,
heartpathretreats.com.
heartpathretreats.com. We have the dates. What's something that I haven't asked you about the retreat that would have been great for people to know?
One of, I always ask people, okay, what was your favorite part of the retreat? And more often than not, the vast majority of the people say that the hike. So we do a few different hikes, but there's one kind of bigger version of that. And what's cool about that is that it's totally about you. So if someone comes and they're like, yeah, I'm not really such a hiker, but I just kind of want to hang out like in the trees, great. Sit there, meditate your face off for 3 hours. Like, that's awesome. Some people, like the guy that I mentioned who came in as like Mr. Atheist, he is a CrossFit superstar maniac fitness guy. So he was like, I just want to run this thing. So he took off, ran the whole trail, and came back and like was done before most of us had gotten started. But it's like, it's so individualized. And that's what I encourage people to do, is to make it their own experience. And sometimes people, get to the end of the hike and we hang out and it's great. And it's like, cool, we got to the end, but a lot of people don't. And that's totally fine too. So that ends up being a lot of people's favorite thing, because sometimes they might hike by themselves for maybe an hour, and then they'll connect with people and have really, really interesting conversations on the trail. And then maybe their group changes and new people are added on, or maybe they find themselves alone again. And it's a really contemplative time. So that's like really a lot of what it is. It's connecting to you, understanding what it is that you actually want and what feels good to you. Sometimes we forget to ask ourselves that. And just that connection to the earth and the wilderness, that's what it's really all about.
How many people are at the retreat?
So I've always said 20 was the max, and we sold out the last 2 years. This year I said I might be open to 30. So we'll see. So like, I'm going to say 20 to 30.
Gotcha.
So very small groups, super intimate.
Yeah, I just wanted to make that clear that they're not coming to like a 200 person retreat. It's very, very intimate. Again, because you want to give them that real experience of them. All right, so I'm going to ask you the final question, which is that cliche of I wish I knew then what I know now. So obviously you have some interesting.
A lot. That's the answer.
Yeah. But what's something that you wish you would have known, either when you were getting started or as a child or anything like that?
Yeah, that's there's so many things I could say, but really as the kind of umbrella to most of them, it's that I'm going to go back to that fixed versus growth mindset, because I thought if I am good at something, then I'm just good at something. I picked up a lot easily, quickly, whatever. And then I'll give you an example. Snowboarding. For some reason, skiing was really easy for me. I was a great skier by the time I was down the hill the first time. And then I tried snowboarding in college and I couldn't do it. Like, I was so bad at it. And I'm not usually bad at things. So it like really, really, really bothered me. I wanted to throw the snowboard off the mountain, go home and say, screw this, I hate snowboarding. In my mind, that was the end of the story, because it was fixed. Versus if I had known then, whether it was on a snowboard mountain or when I started my business or even growing up as a kid in school, like if I had known, oh, there's another way to do this. It's called growth mindset, or even whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Just an opportunity to learn, grow, develop, become better at something, practice. That would have been truly life-changing for me. So again, if anyone hasn't read that book by Carol Dweck, go read it. So important.
So important.
And yeah.
I'll tell you, this is how important I think this book is. I read the book. I started sharing it with everyone that I know. I have two young kids, and the number one thing that every parent does, uncontrolled because we've just been programmed, is as soon as your kid does something, they're like, "Oh my God, you're so amazing. You're so good." Which, now is being proved like that's the worst possible thing that you could do to a child. And you just think like, well, that's so, when you hear it, like that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah,
and
it's counterintuitive.
Yeah, she explains it in all these different details. I was so moved by that book. I bought a box, literally a box of books, and I gave it to every teacher, even those that weren't teaching my children at my my son's school.
That's awesome.
For like, like the summer thank you gift. And I don't know how many of them read it or not, whatever, but it's like, that's how important that kind of education is. And I'll just say one other thing that for me, I didn't grow up, and Mindie, you didn't grow up with any of this stuff, right? Like this is stuff that we developed and learned over time. One of the biggest things for me with my children is actually having them be aware of intuition and heart, even at this very, very young age. And I'll tell you like a weird, freaky story. I started meditating pretty regularly. I guess it's about 8 months, something like that. I don't know exactly when I started. But I remember like when I would do it, I started doing it outside, and I would come in, and my daughter is like very attached to my wife. I walked upstairs like right around the time that they were waking up after having this awesome meditation outside, and my daughter called for me from the room, like called. She'd never done that before. And I was just like, whoa. And then as soon as I walked into her room, she just like jumped on me, like huge bear hug. I'm clear that kids are just the best radar of energy.
Absolutely.
Ever. Like they pick more up on energy than words, actions, anything like that. And so when you come from here as your practice, that's what you're going to inject into your kids. So like, this is what I tell people, like, even if you don't do this shit for you, do it for your kids. like at least give them the opportunity to have these tools. And this is a really, if you can follow life and your heart to intuitively lead you, it's just what a blessing. So thank you for sharing your wisdom.
Thanks for having me on your show.
It's awesome. I love that we keep bumping into each other over and over.
So great.
Yeah. We actually ended up at an event in Ohio at a mastermind, and neither of us knew the other was going to be there till like the day of.
Right. In Cleveland. Of all, like, who goes to Cleveland?
Who goes to Cleveland?
Sorry for any Cleveland people out there. But.
To hang out with you and your husband. And good luck on the retreat. And Thank for all you guys listening, like, go check out the website, and at least, if you have questions, follow up with Mindie. She's very accessible, amazing human being, really, really one of the rare human beings out there. So connect with her, and hope you guys find your way to Sedona. If you haven't been there, pretty tremendous place. Thank you, love. Amazing as always to be in your space, and talk soon.
Thanks so much.
Did you run through doors till you hit the floor? Did you read my eyes and my aching thoughts? Did you walk through walls till you had to grow? Oh my God, your smile and my soundless call.